Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January the 13th, 2020. Guando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I'm kind of depressed today. I went to fly to New Orleans and found out that the airport was fogged in, so they canceled my flight, so I'm going to have to go search out some anti-depressing adult beverages tonight and watch the game at home.
Well, there's another game. I thought we were out of games already. There's so many great things happening in the sports universe. Really looking forward to this national championship football game tonight. The good old boys down south having a tailgate party with LSU and Clemson. Also, some good old boys on the side of the football where they get paid, Big C. A lot of great football games coming up to see. Also, Big C Sports, sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports, powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as a mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, before we get into our football, I know you're looking forward to it, but I want to make sure we pay homage to our military veterans. We have a national suicide hotline number. We always give it out, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's always important that, everyone keeps our military veterans on their mind, especially with all the impressing unrest that's going on around the world. So many of these veterans have served in these horrific events that have occurred, and we got to find a way to stem the way of suicide in this country, Charlton. We got to find a way to get cell phones into all these veterans. I think this is something that the military and the government needs to look into, so that they have access to this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Well, they got to have access to it, so we hope that they can get some help with that number. I know everybody's looking forward to what's going on in the world of college football, and to really celebrate, and I want to get your thoughts, what's really bigger in the South? You have Tennessee in the AFC Championship game, and that's a southern state. And then you also have the LSU, and we have Clemson in the national championship game. Which one is getting more flavor, NFL or college, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the college football gets much, much more flavor than the NFL football, and that's around the country where college football is big. But when you think about the state of Louisiana, yes, the Saints are there, but they've been eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah.
You think about LSU, their home stadium seats about 103,000. And it's sold out every home game. You think about Clemson. The closest thing to them is the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Panther Stadium seats about 68 to 69,000. Clemson home stadium seats 88,000, Charlton. These are must-have tickets. You talked about the price of tickets out there in San Francisco for the 49ers' first home playoff game in forever. Think about the price of a ticket down in Louisiana tonight, Charlton. You're easily dropping $25,000 to $30,000 for a 50-yard line mid-level seat, Charlton.
That is crazy. Don't they know they can come to Big C's restaurants and see it free? They just got to pay for some food, Big C, but that's amazing. So tonight we have the Clemson Tigers. They aim for their second straight national championship when they take on the LSU Tigers in the 2020 College Football National Championship game. I mean, it's amazing. It's scheduled for 8 o'clock kickoff East Coast time, so it's already underway. We don't give out scores. But isn't this amazing where we have two teams that are both undefeated? Now, I know you're down south, Big C. You saw the SEC championship game. Does this have more flavor with those Southern boys from the Carolinas coming in, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, most definitely it has more flavor. When you think about the SEC championship game, it's a rival game that occurs every year. The national championship is for it all. This is for immortality, Charlton, something that you can never have to worry about saying, I was never a champion. You can be a conference champion, but be the national champion, and to go 15-0 on the college football season, Charlton, these are rare things that occur.
Yeah.
And to have two teams, and you know that the Tigers are going to win tonight regardless, but to have two teams to show up with perfect records and putting it all on the line on 60 Minutes tonight, Charlton.
It's amazing. I know we can talk ad nauseum, Big C, about how many great players are in this game, and it takes me way back. This is like USC Texas back in the 2005 Rose Bowl, because we had two undefeated teams. Oftentimes, when we get to a national championship game, there's a team that's had a loss. Even Alabama has gone to national championship games, but they've actually had a loss on the season and still been able to win the game. We know over the years teams have had that. When I think about running backs, I know everybody talks about the quarterbacks tonight, but when you look at what's happening running the football, Big C, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was listed as doubtful for the Peach Bowl because of a hamstring suffered in the game, but he's going to play. And Ed Orgeron said he's going to play. Everybody's going to play tonight, Big C. How much of he a factor outside of the quarterback? Burrow gets all the press, but you don't have a good running game. He doesn't have a lot of time to throw as much, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he will remind you of a player who played out there on the West Coast, Maurice Jones-Drew, who played at UCLA.
Yeah.
Similar type back, 5'8", Charlton, and weighs about 220 pounds, who is a bowling ball and one of the more dominant running backs. One of the things that this game possesses, both of the running backs, Travis Etienne and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're both from the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
So this is a homecoming for both of these backs.
Yeah.
And this is the first time in a national championship game, Charlton, when you look at both running backs, neither one of these running backs carried the ball over 200 times on the season. Neither one of them reached the 200 carry threshold.
Yeah.
That means that both running backs are fresh. That hamstring is good for Helaire tonight, but Hilaire's averaged 6.6 yards per carry on the season, where Travis Etienne averaged 8 yards per carry. So you're looking at two explosive, dominant running backs. He is a safety net for Joe Burrow, as well as that swing pass out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And watch him make several big plays tonight for the Tigers.
You think about the speed, 1,304 yards. Again, in any other team, you would think this guy's up for at least player of the year, 1,300 yards, when you're playing against the kind of defenses that he's playing against. Now, I know people say the SEC and the ACC, at the top two teams, yeah, they're all good at the very top. But if you go top to bottom, the SEC is a much more dominant conference than the ACC is, Big C. But so 1,300 yards in that conference is amazing. 16 touchdowns, that's also an SEC best. And you think about the depth in the backfield, they have a guy by the name of Chris Curry that had 16 carries, 90 yards, and people don't even hear about him. I want to go to the other side of the ball when you talk about Travis Etienne. There was a guy by the name of Leroy Etienne that played for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I want to say it was back in the late 90s, right around 89, 90, somewhere in there. And I remember him. He was a linebacker. And I don't know if they're related or not, but I want to get your thoughts on this. If you're Etienne, and what I just said about SEC having stronger defenses, he seems to have the same kind of performance against Ohio State, which was considered one of the top defenses in the country. Do you think we'll see that same success tonight against probably a little bit speedier LSU, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, LSU is not going to be faster than Ohio State. And when you think about Etienne, one of the most explosive running backs in the country. He goes from 0 to 60 in 3 strides, Charlton. He's explosive. If you don't get a hat on him, he will leave you in his wake. So as you think about what he has done, and he's about 40 yards away tonight from crashing the 4,000-yard barrier for total yards rushing in his career, which would be a Clemson record, Charlton. So Etienne, he's up. It's not his first time being in this rodeo. He's been there the last 3 consecutive years. So if you think about a back that's ready and understands the big stage tonight, that's the guy that you want with the ball in his hand.
Yeah, you got to have that. And think about this. As a former defensive guy, if you are Dabo Swinney and them good old boys on defense, they're looking at the LSU offense. Again, 14-0, both teams. They're the leading team in the country when it comes to scoring. They scored 50 points 6 times this season. That's almost half of their games, Big C. The top-seeded Tigers, they're in their search for their first national title since 2007. Now, they're a 5.5-point favorite. Don't even look at what happened in the Oklahoma game. That was an anomaly. You really got to look at what happened against teams like Texas, also teams like the Alabama game. And even if you want to throw in Georgia, I thought Georgia was outmanned. So we're not looking at a team scoring 60 points or 50 points tonight, Big C. Is 5.5 too much, or do you feel like it's not enough, or are they right on target, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at this game, Charleston, you got to throw all the numbers out the window. This is a game about championship caliber teams. You're putting two equal teams on the field tonight. Yes, Clemson was high in the nation. It's not Clemson, but LSU.
Yeah.
The amount of points that they scored. Ohio State was a team that was right behind them, Charleston, and you saw what happened to Ohio State's offense last week.
Yeah.
You got to understand that Brent Venable is a tremendous defensive coordinator with Clemson. He's been here 3 consecutive years. This makes his 4th consecutive run in the national championship game, Charleston. He's seen every type of offense that you can expect to see, whether it's in the playoffs or whether it's been in the regular season for Clemson.
Yeah.
This is new uncharted territory for LSU. The pressure is always on the home team because you all have everybody that's been after you for the past week because you're right at home. So it makes it kind of tough. It's easy for Clemson to come in town, Charleston, because they're visiting.
Yeah.
They haven't had family. They haven't had friends hitting them up constantly. And they know how to handle this type of circus. And so I feel that all the pressure's on LSU. You're going to have a point spread.
Yeah.
There's going to be some big plays that make the difference in the game. And yes, I mean, everybody wants to see a high, explosive game offensively.
Yeah.
And I see this game looking more at the over than worrying about the point spread.
Yeah. Now, when you think about what I learned about watching, Burrow, obviously, he's so impeccably talented. Watching the game last night with the Green Bay Packers and watching how Rodgers and also Wilson, you know how you always say the guy with the ball in the last 2 minutes? Well, it happened to be that Rodgers had the ball in the last 2 minutes in that game. But if you look at Burrow, what he reminds me of is a guy that the play is not over once he gets outside of the pocket, Big C. With speed on both sides of the ball, the line play is going to be neutralized. But do you still feel that with the defensive speed that LSU have and also Clemson, that they'll be able to run outside of the pocket, or will they be so much speed containing that outside edge, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, both of these quarterbacks are going to get outside. You're talking about two highly mobile individuals.
Yeah.
As everybody's been enamored with Joe Burrow, and this young man has had a tremendous season all year long. He reminds me a lot of Ken Dorsey, who used to play football at the University of Miami.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by a lot of guys who are going to play in the NFL for a long time. I know that Joe Burrow has gotten all the accolades. He's won the Heisman Trophy. But the thing about that, Charlton, the worst thing about that is you end up normally going to a team with a bad record in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're troubled for the first several years of your career, which is going to be a problem for him. A lot of things that a lot of people don't understand. The young man is 23 years old. He's not a young kid.
Yeah.
You think about it. He's 2 years older than Lamar Jackson, who lost at quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens over the weekend. So think about the maturity of this young man. He's 2 years older than a guy who played his second season in the NFL as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, that's amazing when you think about how much talent is on the field and how the pendulum has swung, down to the southeast. If we went back 15 years ago, it was about USC, Texas, Ohio State. You could even say Michigan. And then way back in the day, you're always looking at Penn State and the Notre Dames of the world. But now that pendulum has definitely swung down south. When we used to go down south, Big C, and look at some of the dominant programs, it was always Miami, Florida. Remember they had a 57-game win streak at the Orange Bowl, but those days are over. So when we go south now, it's about Clemson and it's about LSU.
If you look at if you look at LSU, Charlton, they played Alabama 12 years ago in the Superdome down in New Orleans for the national championship. So as we look at the landscape of college football and you look at the dominance that Alabama's had for the last decade, really, when you think about from really 2010 on, really 2005, football has been concentrated down in the South. So for the last 15 years, it's been a Southern entity that's gone on.
Yeah, the tide all it goes and it's a flow. It goes back and forth depending on where people go. But I want to get your thoughts on this number that I'm going to bring up, because everybody's so enamored with the offenses and the quarterbacks, which guy is going to be a first ballot pick for obviously the NFL draft. But when I think about something, you're a defensive guy. LSU's run defense, they give up 5 yards per carry on first down. Big C, that's 95th in the bowl subdivision. That's not good. When you think about they're giving up 13 runs of 20 or more yards on first down, and that's 113th in the country. How are they such a dominant team if their defense against the run is so bad on first down, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you have an offense that scores as efficiently as LSU, then you got a lot of teams, Charlton, that will abandon the run. You try to run the ball early on LSU to keep their offense off the field. But they have such a quick strike offense that when you get behind, you have to abandon the running lane. Those numbers are misleading when you think about that. This is what they've given up on first down.
Yeah.
But they're not giving that up, Charlton, when they're behind. Think about it. They haven't spent much time behind this season. So a lot of teams will get those runs when they're behind. You run a draw play, trying to get the defense sucked up so you can try to throw it over the top. So statistically, you can't always believe in a statistic like that because this is a team that's never playing from behind.
When you think about what we just saw, when we saw, the Clemson game against Ohio State, there's still some people in Ohio saying that they got robbed. Okay, maybe they did. They got a player called for targeting, ejected from the game. They had a receiver for Clemson take 5 steps. The ball was stripped. They said it was not a completion. It was returned for a touchdown. That was taken off. Whatever it is, they had a rough in the kicker kick. Whatever it is, they can blame that. But when you look at Lawrence, that you don't have with Burrow, unless I haven't seen this, I had no idea that Trevor Lawrence could run 60 yards against the Ohio State defense. And he was almost untouched down the sideline, Big C. So it's not like he was getting 15 or 20 blocks. To go untouched down the sideline, over 60 yards, I don't think Burrow can do that. I think what Clemson's going to do in the game plan also is have some play option passes for Lawrence to keep it. And I did not know he had that talent until I saw the Ohio State game. Would that be a mistake because you risk him also to being hit, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton. Neither one of these quarterbacks are coming into the game saying, I'm going to be the game breaker as far as running the ball.
Yeah.
It was a magnificent 64-yard run that Trevor Lawrence had. We've seen, Joe Burrow run 20, 30 yards for LSU.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do when time justifies it in the game, and that's what makes these two quarterbacks so special. But what makes them even more special than that is their arm talent, Charlton. Neither one of these gunslingers have any fear. They have ice water in their their veins. And that's the reason why both of these teams are in the national championship game, based on the arms of their quarterback. You think about Trevor Lawrence. This young man has never lost a college football game. So he doesn't know what it's like yet to taste defeat, and he's trying to avoid that once again tonight. When you think about Joe Burrow, his coming out party last year was against Central Florida, and where he got blindsided on an interception, and he got himself up because he said he couldn't show weakness to his teammates.
Yep.
At that time, they knew that he was a leader. He's won his last 15 consecutive starts for LSU, just like Trevor Lawrence has won his last 29 starts for Clemson.
Yeah, well, when you think about Clemson ranks 12th nationally in sacks. LSU's given up more than 2 sacks per game. We're going to see some players being sacked. The ability to elude the sack and get outside of the pocket and maybe even pick up a first down. I would give Trevor Lawrence the edge in that one just because I've seen it. I haven't seen that with Burrow. Give Big C's thoughts. How would you rank these quarterbacks? We did the scenario where you always talk about the quarterback last 2 minutes, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. If this game comes down as 28-24 and there's 2 minutes left, which quarterback, you got to drive 80 yards, which quarterback do you have more confidence in leading his team, even though it's not all about the quarterback, but which one would you have more fear in, Big C? Your thoughts?
Dalton, I trust both of these quarterbacks equally because if you look at both of these quarterbacks, they were both put in this situation during the regular season, and they were both able to overcome this situation. So when you look at them both, they're unflappable, and that's the thing about it. They've been put in this situation throughout the season. They've been put in this situation in the conference championship games. They were put in this situation, Charlton, in the bowl game that Burrow played in last year, as well as the national championship game Clemson played in.
Yep.
The thing about it, I don't look at the quarterback so much. I look at the defensive players. How will they handle the pressure? Because they both of these defenses know that they're sitting up looking at two of the best passing quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah. Well, I know that so many people. You know what I love about football, Big C? We've gone through this, the Ben Omalu with the concussion, the CTE scare. We've had football actually declining at the Pop Warner levels nationwide because we've seen so much fear about people being injured. in sports. So a lot of parents will say, well, let me play soccer. Well, soccer kids get concussions too. And then baseball will always be, somewhat of a pastime. You just need a stick and a ball. You can play that game. But football is becoming so, I want to say safer. Maybe that's naive to say that. It's become safer. But as I asked you earlier, and I never would have thought I would hear this answer, does college football outcompete with the NFL when it comes to people being excited about it, especially in the southern region, Big C? Your thoughts?
College football is greater than the NFL across the country, Charlton, when you look at it. When you look at the attendance in stadiums, and the college football game is such a short season, and you have players that you can recognize. And in college football, it's about the game on the field and the players on the field.
Yeah.
It's not about, look at my social media account.
Right.
Look at me on my commercial endorsements. It's about the game. It's about the team concept in college football, and all of football was originally intent for, Charlton.
Yep.
Professional football is all about promotion. College football is all about action.
Give me a feeling on this. I know when it comes to coaching, Ed Orgeron, for most people, he would take a back seat to Dabo Swinney, because Dabo's been there many, many moons now. It's not his first rodeo. Orgeron, it is. But I think Orgeron, maybe my opinion, but you're down south. Is he seen as the reason this program is turned around, or is it just talent? Because they didn't have, Miles tried to do it. Miles had success, but they still ran Miles out of town. Orgeron, the perception of him, is it talent or is it him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's Ed Orgeron and what he has meant to his program as far as putting together a coaching staff. You got to understand, he recruited Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
LSU has always had talent. They've always had a wealth of NFL draft picks every year. Great defensive players, great receivers,
yep.
offensive linemen. They've put them in the NFL, Charlton. But they never had a coach-quarterback combination like what they had before. They've had number one draft picks at quarterback before out of LSU. None of them have been successful.
Yeah.
But when you look at what Ed Orgeron has done, football is a mentality. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Because I don't care where you look in this country, you look in the Power 5 conferences, Charlton, everyone has great athletes.
Yeah.
Even before they put the college football playoffs together, and when they were crowning national champs, AP, UP, Pole, everybody had great athletes. But the difference was the teams who won every year, and still to this day, have coaching mentality.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. You walk out there and you're going to tell me this team has better athletes than this team? No. When you stand there on the sideline and you look at the imposing players, I know when I was standing there at the SEC championship game, you can't tell me that LSU's players look better than Georgia's players.
Right.
No, they didn't. They were all imposing.
Yeah.
But it came down to coaching. It comes down to a coach that he can impose his will, and his players take that message and impose that coach's will on their opponent.
Big C, is their perception, perception's everything, is their perception that Dabo Swinney and the Clemson program has taken that step on the ladder higher than Alabama, that Alabama is now perhaps the number 2 perennial power in college football? If LSU gets beaten tonight, then people might say yes. But if LSU, if they fall short, then Dabo, maybe he overtakes Saban. But Saban has 6 championships. Dabo's trying to get number 3, Big C. But perception-wise, is he on the same level or no? Your thoughts?
Well, perception-wise, Charlton, perception is whoever's drinking out of a glass is what perception is.
Yeah.
When you think about the heights that Alabama's program has had for the last decade, nobody can match that. Everyone appreciates what Dabo Swinney has done at the University of Clemson, making 4 consecutive runs into the college football playoffs, Charlton, an opportunity tonight to be back-to-back national champions. The last guy to do that was Nick Saban.
Yep.
So what he is doing is chasing what Nick Saban has done. When you look at the Alabama program, Charlton, how can you say a program is down when they only lose 2 games?
Yeah.
What team on the West Coast would like to have Alabama's record over the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah.
Nobody on the West Coast can equal that. So when to say that Alabama's down and Dabo's taking the crown, there's not a crown when you look at the South, Charlton, because it's a year-to-year thing. Yes, he's beaten Nick last year, 2 out of the last 3 years, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Nick Saban hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, he hasn't gone anywhere. I think and this is why that same statement you made is the reason why they're going to expand college football playoffs. If a team like Alabama is left out, or even say a team like Oregon and Wisconsin, as well as they play in the Rose Bowl, there's enough room to have 4 more teams compete and take away the emphasis on having to be an undefeated team, that means some of the top teams will play each other. I think USC is opening next year with Alabama.
But they do have the college football. It's called the play. It's called the conference championship.
Yeah.
You have 10 teams competing for 4 positions, and so it's not that you're undefeated because you can lose.
Yeah.
And get in if you win the conference championship. So we have that. The problem, as you just talked about earlier, when you're talking about the health and welfare of players,
yeah, and
you talk about money, you got to realize the amount of money that those big-time bowl games generate, the Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, and there was one other, the Orange Bowl, I believe.
Bowl, yeah.
When you think about the amount of money that they generate, those bowl games are not willingly going to succumb and say, hey, we're willing to give up what we have built over these decades because somebody else wants to expand.
Well, just keep in mind that last week I reported that I think ESPN is going to buy the rights to SEC football from CBS to cover SEC. But you might think, okay, well, that's a disadvantage for other conferences. Also, Mountain West Conference, you're talking about Fresno State, San Diego State, UNLV, Nevada, Colorado State, Air Force, Hawaii, and a couple other programs. Well, think about this. The Mountain West Conference has announced a 6-year media rights deal with CBS Sports and Fox Sports. They got 2 networks to cover football, men's and women's football and basketball games combined with basketball, men and women's, but football. So they have 2 networks that are going to cover out here, as well as the Pac-12 has Fox Sports. So there's more money coming to all the conference. It's not just SEC Trenton. And it's going to happen, they're saying, by the 2025 season.
If you get a Boise State that goes undefeated, 13-0 on the regular season in their conference playoff,
yeah,
and they're ranked number 11 in the country, number 10 in the country, do they deserve to be in the college football playoff? They got a stadium, I believe, seats about 35,000 people. Can they bring enough people across the country? I know they played in the Fiesta Bowl several years ago.
Yeah.
But can they bring people across the country on a week notice to help fill a stadium? These are the things that you look about, and that's that gray area that no one understands. That you're going to have teams like Memphis, Central Florida, Boise State, Fresno State, these smaller schools, Charlton, that are going to rank into the top 12 somewhere in the country because they're undefeated. And so how would that create the landscape if you expand college football?
I think it's happening. That's why they announced the check's already written, Big C. It's not even going to bounce. They've already written the check, $270 million. It goes in place in 2025. So they're not doing that to make the bowl games go away. They're doing it to expand the games that mean something.
But if you got the money, what's the reason to expand the playoffs? If you already got the check, there's no need in saturating your money anymore.
Because TV, just like 20 years ago, buy a TV ad for the Super Bowl, what you could get at $1 million. Now it costs about $6 million. Everything goes up in price. But these major networks, they're billion-dollar networks. They know where their money's made, and they're saturating to get ready for the expansion. It's already in the ink. And I think it's great for sports overall. The health and safety, they've been talking about that since they started playing even Pop Warner. But that's always going to be a part of it. I want to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the NFL, and the playoffs have been amazing. Looking forward to college football tonight. Also, the NFL will take a Big C timeout, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the app that I love called Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. My goodness, we've had so many great football games. NFL out here in San Francisco, Levi Stadium's really come alive. It hasn't been over the last couple of years what it is now, just because football, it really galvanizes people, Big C. We can get over so many issues that happen in life, from Pop Warner to the professional level, and NFL football does it. I want to go back and just get on some thoughts about the playoffs games. I'll start in San Francisco. The NFC Championship game will be in San Francisco, Santa Clara, coming up on Sunday. The 49ers are headed back to the championship game for the first time in 7 years. They had a 27-10 win over the Vikings. Last time I was there, it was the 49ers over the Atlanta Falcons, and that was Colin Kaepernick. And I know that the thing that I don't like about San Francisco is they tried to move away from a guy who just wanted liberty and justice for all, and they made it about a negative narrative, about anti-troops, and it was nothing. I mean, that was just bad. However, we got to go forward in life or we stay backward. Give me your feeling on what the 49ers did, a 27-10 win over the Vikings. They didn't even have a 100 yards rushing for the Vikings and Dalvin Cook. Make your thoughts.
Well, I think that was the major difference in the game right there, is that the Vikings did not utilize Dalvin Cook in the game. They relied more on your cousin, and he was unable to deliver. I think he was still living off his laurels from the week before what occurred down in New Orleans, because he seemed, uneased the whole game against San Francisco. He could never get his footing, trying to deliver the ball. His receivers, you could see the frustration. And even the one touchdown pass that he threw in the game, it was an underthrown ball that allowed Diggs to come back on it to get the ball and turn it up for a touchdown, Charlton. But the Minnesota Vikings were just overmatched. I think they were just happy being in San Francisco.
It's interesting, Big C. I think the 49ers are beating them like 5. I mean, we can go back and throw history away, but they've only lost one time in the playoffs to the Vikings. But they were only up 14-10 at halftime, and they ran away in the second half because of adjustments from Shanahan and his coaching staff. But something that's striking to me, the Vikings managed 147 yards of total offense, 147. And I'm not blaming Kirk Cousins for it, but when they went down and won in New Orleans, they said it was called Kirk Cousins. He got the monkey off his back. Well, maybe that monkey jumped back on. 147 yards total offense. They held the Vikings. It's amazing, Big C. It's just that I don't understand. 21 yards. How do you get 21 yards rushing in an NFL playoff game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, this was a move from the offensive coordinator as well as Kirk Cousins. In a quarterback in a big game, you have to be prescient and dominant enough mentally to take control. You can't let the moment be too big. You're in a semifinal game in the NFL playoffs trying to get to the Super Bowl, yet you look like a high school kid playing quarterback.
Yeah.
The biggest difference I saw in this game, and the last time I saw the 49ers with a running back wearing number 26 dominating game, his name was Wendell Tyler out of UCLA.
Yeah.
And they went on to win a Super Bowl with Wendell Tyler's dominant performance. Tevin Coleman had the same type of dominance performance that Wendell Tyler had. I know the quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, will get a lot of accolades, but you have to look no further than Tevin Coleman, the running back out of University of Indiana, via way of the Atlanta Falcons with the San Francisco 49ers. And when you think about the Atlanta Falcons' fingerprint on this game, Charlton, you think about the Kyle Shanahan, the head coach. You think about Ben Garland, the center for the 49ers, offensive center, who is making all the critical play calls for the offensive line. Tevin Coleman, who came over from the Atlanta Falcons, also, Charlton, to follow Shanahan to San Francisco, and Tua Tula, the backup tight end, who played an integral role in blocking. So those three players, 4 people altogether on offense, were very integral in San Francisco winning this game and moving on to the NFC Finals.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the 49ers, they'll be hosting the NFC title game for the second time in just 21 years, Big C. It's amazing how things turn around. And football is such a great sport that it brings so many people together. And that's the thing that I love about this game, that no matter where you are, there are people that will turn up for a championship game, especially some of the old-timers that played back in the day. And I know Buns was there. We started out many years ago doing a show in Buns Cafe up in Northern California. So he was there waving the towel for the 49ers. So now they get what they wanted, because I don't think they wanted Russell Houdini Wilson coming in, even without a running game. The game to me that the media wants to see is Aaron Rodgers, discount double check, and he's going to make the trip to San Francisco. The Packers advanced to the NFC title game with a 28-23 win over the Seattle Seahawks, but they were kind of limping around because they have no run game, Big C. I'm so impressed with Russell Wilson and it took Aaron Rodgers on a third and long pass to his wide receiver that everybody loves to have him go to. That helped them get the first down and keep the drive going. At the same time that they were given a first down on Graham, his helmet hit the line, not the ball, but, they always said the helmet's not, or the line's not official. Either way, I don't think the Packers have a chance unless there's turnovers by Jimmy G. And when Jimmy G had an interception against the Vikings, it was Shanahan that shut down the passing game, and they kept running the ball instead, Big C. I think the same thing that happened against Green Bay. Your thoughts?
Well, this is not going to be the game that Green Bay played some 5 weeks ago in San Francisco, Charlton. This is a completely different Green Bay offense. When you think about the productivity of Aaron Jones, this offense goes as Aaron Jones go in Green Bay. Just like in Minnesota, that offense goes as Dalvin Cook goes. But if you don't give Dalvin Cook the ball, how do you ever expect to win in Minnesota?
Yeah.
You saw Green Bay get Aaron Jones involved early. They understood he was the engine that's going to drive that horse.
Yeah.
We saw Aaron Rodgers play a phenomenal ball. He had some pinpoint passes in that cold, inclement weather in Green Bay. He's going to have an opportunity to come out to California where the sun shines, and it would be more in his favor if it rains in California at that time. We know the type of quarterback he is in sloppy conditions. But I saw something from Green Bay in this game against Seattle that they hadn't demonstrated in a while, was a tremendous pass rush. They kept a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson. Yes, they did not have a run game in Seattle, which is a big difference in San Francisco, because we saw what Tevin Coleman did, gaining 105 yards on the ground last week against Minnesota.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the big challenge for Green Bay defense. Can they stop the run and get that pass rush on Jimmy Garoppolo? He's not as mobile as a Russell Wilson, and they got the Russell Wilson 5 times.
Yeah, with Jimmy G, he's better short passes, and they realize that, and he could be, he's the missing link, and that's why Shanahan shut him down in the second half. And just don't cost him the game. Let the defense take over. Richard Sherman, really love the way he plays, but I don't think he can cover Adams. I know he hasn't given up a touchdown in the playoffs, and that's a 12 games. No one scored a touchdown against Richard Sherman. Those are his own stats. I haven't checked them to verify. But, Davante Adams, just don't line him up with Sherman, because Sherman will get a pick if you mess with him too much, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Sherman, he's only played one playoff game. And so when you think about Kirk Cousins, he only threw the one touchdown, and that was to Diggs, and that was against a backup defensive back. So a lot more of that has to do with the quarterback. I don't think that Sherman can hang with Davante Adams.
No.
Sherman had an interception, but the ball was thrown right to him. He almost dropped it.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a big play defensively, but I haven't seen him strike the fear in any quarterbacks. He's not going to strike fear in Aaron Rodgers. He's seen him on multiple occasions, Charlton. Richard Sherman's a tremendous corner, but he's not the guy he was 5 years ago either.
No, not. I think that 49er line is amazing. Nick Bosa, obviously, he's the fan favorite, it seems, for the 49ers. I know he came into the season with a lot of junk in his background, and they gotten through that with all the racial animus on Twitter and social media. I think the players have embraced them no matter what. If you can play, people forgive you. But I really like the way the 49ers got after Kirk Cousins and the way they wrapped up Dalvin Cook. I don't see the Packers having a better offense than the Vikings. I thought the Vikings had a better defense than what I saw, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout game either. But I do think the 49ers can win by 10 just because of how dominant they played. And they shut down Jimmy G, and they ran the ball. That's why they won. That's my opinion, but I can't wait to see that game. I want to go to another game because it's the upset, perhaps, Big C, the upset of the weekend. And that would be when we look at what happened with the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Tennessee Titans that took that big locomotive, that freight train, and they ran it for 195 yards. And I didn't think it would be healthy for a guy to do that. I look at guys like Earl Campbell, but this guy's still young, 28-12. The Titans over the Ravens. They've knocked off Tom Brady in New England. They've knocked off Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And now they're trying to find where Patrick Mahomes lives, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know why people think it's an upset. I didn't feel that Baltimore had a chance in this game, and you can go back and listen to the show from last week, that I felt that Tennessee would win this game outright. When you think about what Travis has done in his last 3 games, he's averaged 196 yards a game rushing in his last 3. The Baltimore Ravens, when you think about the key starters on Baltimore, they had not played football in a month.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people in the media keep thinking that you can sit out for a month and come back and be up to speed. You can't. They played week 16 of the season.
Yeah.
So that was the last time that the starters had started a game. Week 17, they sit down. They had 2 weeks off prior to playing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they didn't have game speed. They didn't have contact speed, and I saw that especially in the wide receivers from Baltimore, where they were alligating arms going across the field because they didn't want to get hit.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't had contact in a month. So when I think about what Derrick Henry did, and I saw people making business decisions, especially Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas ran up on Travis Henry on the sideline and got punked twice. He got hit in the face, spun around, and then got pushed in the back, saying, hey, I need you to be my lead blocker so I can pick up another 10 yards. And he accommodated him on that.
Yeah.
But that was just the mindset of Baltimore all throughout the game. Not only that, the coaches got rattled. They took Lamar Jackson out of his element. Why is Lamar Jackson throwing the ball 51 times in a ball game?
Yeah.
He doesn't need to throw the ball 51 times. Run it 20, yes. Throw it 51, no. Right there, you're going to lose. I told you Ingram wouldn't be a factor. He had that calf strain that was a la Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
He went out of the game early, and they knew they had the game at that point.
Yeah. I want to draw what you just said. A couple of years ago, Dallas rested players going into the game against Philadelphia so Roman could get a start. And it took them a whole half to get warmed up again against Green Bay, and they lost that game at home. When I look at the San Francisco 49ers, also the number 1 seed, they had to keep playing against Seattle, up in Seattle, so they could decide who was going to win the NFC West. So they didn't get a chance to rest their players, and they didn't lose that momentum that a lot of guys get going, and then you sit it on the sideline and you say, hey, we can start it up anytime we want to. That didn't happen. And then you have a quarterback in Tannehill. He didn't even have 100 yards passing in his last 2 games. And they just ran the ball, and that seems to be the key for the Titans. Big C, I want to cover something, though, because what I don't want to have happen, and not that I control it, media does what they want to do. Everybody has their own opinion. I don't like when this loss is put on Lamar Jackson. Numbers-wise, he threw the ball almost twice as many times as he normally does, and you talked about that. And I'm not trying to jump on Harbaugh either. I thought they just got beat by a better team, and they looked out of sync. They looked rusty. And that was much of it. But I don't want people to say, you see, that kind of quarterback's not going to win in this league. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you're getting all the accolades, you got to take some of the blame also.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, early in the game, did not seem to be in tune, Charlton. He needs to know that I need to be more pressing about what the situation is as a quarterback.
Yeah.
He's only 21 years old. Like I said, he's 2 years younger than Joe Burrow, who's playing tonight. Championship game for the LSU Tigers.
Yeah.
In his second playoff game, Charlton, and he's lost both of his playoff games. That's a cloud over him mentally. Well, what is he going to do for himself to get over that? I mean, as a coaching staff, you got to look at it and say, hey, we can't sit players for an entire month thinking that they're going to be ready to play. They could have played. He could have played the first quarter in Week 17. At least he would not have been totally rusty.
Yeah.
I put all of this on the head coach because the head coach screwed this situation up for his quarterback and his offense. They were completely out of rhythm.
Now, that's true, and we all know that. And I think at some point in time, just like we talked about football's declining, even at the Pop Warner level, because parents don't want to sign their kids up. They hear about CTE. They hear about how physical the game is. Guys are bigger, stronger, and faster. But it's also a safer game because of how they tackle and the equipment, etc. So when you look at coaches, and we want to look at a Harbaugh, and then you look at Vrabel, one learned from Belichick, the other didn't as much. I don't know if that matters. And they beat Belichick too, so you can't knock that. But Henry, give me your thoughts on Henry. Where has this guy been all season? I know once they replaced quarterbacks, they started giving him the ball more. Is it as simple as that, Big C? Your thoughts?
It is simple as that, Charlton, and getting your offensive line healthy. You have to understand Tennessee started off the season without 2 of their offensive linemen. They had to get Schofield in mesh with the rest of the offensive linemen, the free agent they picked up from the Rams, their left offensive guard. You think about Luan, who their left offensive tackle did not start the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah.
So this team was out of sync. You also had Marcus Mariota, who had lost his mindset basically as a quarterback in the NFL. He no longer had the ability to govern that team offensively, Charlton. When they made the move to Tannehill, Tannehill had the savvy to understand what he was working with. I got this guy that everybody in the NFL is scared to tackle.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I give him the ball 25, 30 times a game? And if they're scared to tackle, you think about Derrick Henry in this last game, Charlton.
Yeah.
He had 172 yards before people touched him. That's how many yards he gained before he had contact.
Yeah.
When you look at his combined yards in this game. So it wasn't like people were wanting to hit the guy. You got defensive players, as I always say, making business decisions.
Yeah.
They're in the business of, do I want to live another play?
Right.
Nobody on the Ravens defense felt that they wanted to go up and be the sacrificial lamb for Derrick Henry. They didn't. Players nowadays are not tough as players were 25, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Guys are worried now about their social media page, how they look. They don't want to have grass stains on their uniform.
Yep.
Derrick Henry will truck you. And we've seen Derrick Henry in the NFL before. I was talking with some guys today. Go back to 1972. Leon Burns, a running back with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
Go back to Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Look at Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell was Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry was born. So we have seen this in the NFL before. A running back that people are afraid to tackle. Derrick Henry just happens to be the latest version, just like Lamar Jackson is the latest version of a mobile African-American quarterback. Colin Kaepernick did it 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then we had Flash. We had so many players that are just able to do a lot, but really impressed with how they came out and they whatever they gave them down south of Tennessee to believe that they could go on the road and win. So much for trying to get home field advantage when you're the Tennessee Titans. Now I want to go into Arrowhead Stadium, one of the loudest crowds Big C in NFL football. You think about the Chiefs, a 51-31 win over the Texans. The Chiefs were the number 2 seed, but now they're the number 1 seed, Big C. And the Texans, we were talking about the Texans are a good team, but they're up and down. You really don't know what to expect from them. They can win big one week in a game that maybe they shouldn't have won. And then when they were up 24-0, I thought, what in the world? Did someone get hurt? But I don't know what happened to them. I want to get your thoughts. What happened when you're up 24-0 and you're on the road and you find a way to lose 51-31, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, there was 2 coaches that panicked this weekend that cost their teams the game. Pete Carroll did it first. When you go out, Charlton, and instead of kicking extra points, which would have had it a 3-point game at the end of the game against Green Bay, and all Seattle would have needed was a field goal to tie to take it in overtime, yet it was a 5-point spread because you missed 2-point conversions.
Yeah.
That's what I call bad coaching. Then I'm going to go to Kansas City Arrowhead. And I saw it even in a more egregious state in Arrowhead. When I think about what O'Brien did, I would have fired him today. If I was the owner of the Houston Texans, I would have fired the head coach today. You got 4th and 3 inches on your opponent's 31-yard line, and you don't have a play dialed up. Pete Carroll did the same thing against San Francisco when they lost and wouldn't have been the NFC champs, Charlton.
Yeah.
When they lost that game to San Francisco in Seattle. He did the same thing. You don't have a play dialed up from the 1-yard line. I saw the same thing in a playoff game.
Yeah.
And you call a timeout, and you still can't call the right play.
Yeah.
You tell me Deshaun Watson can't sneak it 6 inches, Charlton, to get a first down? He does it all the time. You got Carlos Hyde, a 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield. You can't give it to him, and you're the head coach, and you say you didn't have a play dialed up. But yet you are so incompetent in yourself. You got 4th and 4 at the opponent at your 31.
Yeah.
And you try to fake punt and you lose on that fake punt and give up another touchdown. You turn the tide of the game on those 2 plays, Charlton, because Nicole Hardman ran it back 51 yards on that opposing kickoff after you kicked that field goal that you failed to go for it on 4th down.
Yeah.
And then you give up the ball on downs on that fake punt. I would have fired him today.
Well, emotions do run high, especially after a loss. But you know what? When you think about it, Patrick Mahomes, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns. It's amazing that Houston was outscored 51-7 the rest of the way after they were up 24-0. It's art. We don't want to blame anybody. Everybody has no Monday morning quarterback has ever lost a game. But when you think about Watson, he might do better with a better offensive system, because I agree with you on a lot of those statements made also. I want to run to the fact that they had a rematch coming up against Tennessee. I know Tennessee beat them earlier in the year. Kansas City is a lot healthier now, and we'll get into what's going to happen, more of that game coming up in the week. But I do want to ask you, we're not going to see 180 yards rushing against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, we might see 200 because I think the defense for Kansas City, even though they're good, I mean, you can run through New England, which had the best defense in the NFL, and he hit them for 180 yards. You come back and hit Baltimore, which had a really tough defense also, hit them for 195. He knows how to climb the ladder, Big C. I'm going to see 200 this weekend. Your thoughts?
Well, even if you see 200 yards from Derrick Henry, you got a healthy Patrick Mahomes, which is fearful for every defensive player in the NFL. That's the last thing you want to see. You can deal with Derrick Henry on ball control.
Yeah.
And you can get up and down the field maybe in 10 to 12 play drives. But then you turn around and got Patrick Mahomes in 4 plays, he's got you back on the scoreboard. That's the tangible that Tennessee's defense has to deal with. You have a dominant running game in Derrick Henry, but when you got a team that's as electrifying and can score like a pinball machine like the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know how much your running game will benefit you. And if you get behind against Kansas City, you can make Derrick Henry a non-factor because you can't sit there and pound it out. You're going to force Ryan Tannehill to play football.
Yeah, I look forward to this. I know if Patrick Mahomes is doing his thing, even with these big wins that you've had with Tennessee, they're not scoring 30 points. You know, they're scoring in the 20s. So I look at Kansas City's going to get 30 against anybody. I want to just get one more thought of this game. I know we talked about the Packers earlier. We talked a little bit about Seattle. The Packers 28-23 over the Seahawks. Devontae Adams had a great game. You know, Jones had a good game too, Big C. Everyone wants to see if Rodgers can get back to a Super Bowl. I don't think he can get back to a Super Bowl. The Packers receiver, when you think about Adams, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, they got to find someone more than him. Running the ball is great too. But Russell Wilson, beast mode is great when you need 2 yards at the goal line. That's great. But he's probably not going to come back next year unless for whatever reason. But just give me your feeling. We talk so much about Watson, what he needs around him. How are we going to keep Russell Wilson safe? He had more yards rushing, and he was a leading offensive getter for Seattle, period. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the top 3 running backs ended up on injury reserve at the end of the season. It wasn't because he didn't have anybody. They just got hurt.
Yeah.
They were forced into this situation of signing Marshawn Lynch. The reason they signed him because he was a guy who was still familiar with the offense.
Yeah.
That's the reason they brought him in. So they had no running backs, per se, in Seattle when playoffs started. This just happened to be a case of attrition and being able to fit salary cap. Teams don't have the salary cap money to go out and sign players, and that's what a lot of people don't understand in the NFL. They say players go down. Well, why didn't you just go sign somebody?
Right.
Well, the cap prevents you from going out there signing somebody, even with injuries. You saw that with the Philadelphia Eagles as they brought all these players in off the practice roster, and they were paying them their practice roster minimum NFL salary.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a lot of guys that want to just do that, come in, even though it's a lot of money, to say, okay, I'll play one game for this, and that's it, without any guarantees for next year, knowing that those other guys will be back. But as I look at the situation in Green Bay, Aaron Jones got the thing rolling. The pass rush for Green Bay was lights out.
Yep.
And because you don't possess a running game in the playoffs, this is what happens to you.
Yep.
And they did not have a running game for Seattle, and so they could pin their ears back and come after Russell Wilson. They sacked him 5 times, but as I alluded to earlier, I blame Pete Carroll because he didn't know how to get his team prepared for the first half. When you're always playing from behind, I mean, as great as Russell Wilson is, you've got him constantly coming from behind. Why can't you call those plays in the first half? And then when you're blowing it for your team, going for 2 points, being cocky once again, as Pete Carroll has been throughout his NFL tenure, you cost your team an opportunity to be in the game because now you're not a 3-point game, you're a 5-point game, so a field goal does you no good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Coaches are under the hot seat. There's a lot of things going on. Of course, everybody loves you when you win, and when you lose, everybody hates you too. But that's what we love about the game. It's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And the apps that I love are called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, also Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over. The Universe AFC Championship game, the Tennessee Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. That'll be a 3:05 kickoff East Coast time on CBS Sports. The NFC Championship game, the Green Bay Packers at the San Francisco 49ers at 6:40 p.m. East Coast time on Fox Sports. You know, Big C, we had a couple of good things happen over the weekend with some coaches being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And ironically, I'm happy that Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson got in. I would have thought that Tom Flores would have gotten in too. But Jimmy Johnson been doing this thing ever since the University of Miami. We know he turned the Cowboys around and also went down to the Miami Dolphins. And then Coach Cowher, he went to 2 Super Bowls. He's 1-1. Jimmy Johnson has, 2 championships under his belt too. But the good old boy Tom Flores been to 4, and they still couldn't get him in. Big C, your thoughts and congratulations to Johnson and also Cowher. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, great accolades for both of those coaches, Charlton. Tremendous leader of men in Dallas as well as Pittsburgh. You talked about the 3 championships between those coaches, Charlton. Tom Flores has 4 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of people don't understand. He has 4 Super Bowl rings, and he still cannot get into the NFL Hall of Fame. He has an NFL ring, Charlton, as a player in 1969 when the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings. He has a Super Bowl ring as an assistant coach in 1977 when the Oakland Raiders beat the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
He has a Super Bowl ring from 1980 when the Oakland Raiders beat the Philadelphia Eagles. He has a Super Bowl ring from 1983 when the Los Angeles Raiders beat the Washington Redskins. So I don't know what you need as a resume, as a former player and former coach in the NFL to get into the Hall of Fame. I know it's a popularity contest. I know it's about the new flavor of the month.
Yeah.
And I know that minorities have a hard time getting into the Hall of Fame, a la Jim Plunkett and Tom Flores.
Yeah, it's a shame. So it's hard to celebrate guys that got 1 championship ring and a guy that has 4. They don't happen to know where he is, but he just happened to be a person of color. I want to just run down 2 more stories in the final 4 minutes. Tonight's NBA basketball, we'll take a back seat, but we do have New Orleans at Detroit, Philadelphia at Indiana, Chicago at Boston, Oklahoma City at Minnesota. We have Charlotte at Portland, Orlando at Sacramento, and Cleveland at the LA Lakers. When you talk about laying down fines, Houston Astros, Major League Baseball, think about this. They had a 1-year suspension they had the manager, and also when you think about the Astros came and they fired their coach or their manager because they didn't want to put up with A.J. Hinch anymore, and also the GM. I think it's very harsh. Cheating happens in all of sports, Big C. But why are they acting like we never had a steroid issue? We don't have juiced balls or baseball. Is that too egregious? And will they take away their championship from 2017? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that they'll go out and take away the championship. I think what they did by fining the organization $5 million, suspending the GM and the coach for a year, the organization moving on from them and terminating their contract with the team, Charlton, I think what the league should have done was ban both of those individuals from baseball, just like Pete Rose had been banned for gambling. This is technically like gambling also. You're using an electronic device, which is a faux pas from the league you do not utilize during a game, and you're snubbing the league's face saying you're going to do it anyway to get an unfair advantage. I think they should just be banned for life from baseball.
Yeah, well, we know. They say if you're not cheating, you're not trying. At least Jerry Jones gave a congratulatory, call or tweet or whatever to Jimmy Johnson, even though he's not on the Dallas Cowboys Hall of Fame, but he may be sometime soon. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network. We really appreciate that. Looking forward to National Football Championship decided tonight down in Texas. Also, congratulations from Texas, Frisco, Texas, with North Dakota State over James Madison, so congratulations to them. And we look forward to Clemson and LSU tonight. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, tonight is a game of 4s when you think about the national championship that's being played down in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is LSU's 4th jump at the hat. This is their 4th national championship participation. This is the 4th consecutive time that Clemson has an opportunity to win a national championship, Charlton. So see the winner of the game tonight scoring at least 44.
At least 44. That's a lot of points. And we know that somebody's going to win. And it's probably going to be them Tigers, Big C. And you can win, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.